Here's your daily brief, tailored for leaders, practitioners, and busy teams. We cut through noise and focus on what changes risk today. You will hear breaches with real-world fallout, identity flaws with cloud-scale blast radius, and supply chain shifts that force workflow changes. We will also cover record DDoS pressure and a federal incident that shows how quickly patch notes become intrusions. Expect plain language, short sentences, clear actions. If an identifier matters, we will read it slowly. You can listen on the go at dcn.baremetalcyber.com. Let's get into it.
Read aloud this text in EN US accent. Boyd Gaming confirmed a data breach after a cyber attack. Attackers accessed internal systems and stole data. Employee information was involved, with possible exposure of other individuals. The company operates dozens of casino properties across 10 states. That scale multiplies any identity or fraud risk. The note emphasizes data theft, not encryption. That suggests monetization through resale, phishing, or extortion. If you work in hospitality, review segmentation between loyalty, hotel, and corporate systems. Staff should expect targeted phishing that references benefits or payroll. Watch for card testing, tax fraud, and W-2-themed lures. Prepare identity monitoring offers and regulator notifications. Run tabletop exercises on breach communications and VIP guest outreach. For the next week, tune detections for logins from atypical geographies, especially admin tools.
Microsoft fixed an Entra ID issue that enabled account impersonation. It is tracked as CVE 2025-55241. Researchers showed that actor tokens and legacy AD graph validation gaps could allow abuse. In practice, an attacker could impersonate high-privilege users. That includes global administrators. Microsoft issued mitigations and updates. Your move now is identity hygiene. Inventory legacy graph usage and remove it where possible. Rotate application secrets. Review risky sign-ins and anomalous consent grants. Strengthen conditional access and require phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication. Add detections for unusual token replay and unfamiliar applications. Treat low-impact identity bugs with caution. In cloud identity, small flaws can chain into tenant-wide compromise.
Read aloud this text in US accent. Books, audio courses, and more, all designed to make cyber clear and practical. Explore the full library at cyberauthor.me and baremetalcyber.com.
GitHub is tightening NPM security after multiple supply chain incidents. The platform will require two-factor authentication for local publishing. Tokens will become granular and short-lived. Trusted publishing from CI/CD with OpenID Connect is encouraged. The goal is reducing stolen secrets, wormable scripts, and mass package abuse. What changes for you? Maintainers must enable two-factor authentication and update publishing workflows. Replace long-lived personal access tokens with ephemeral credentials. Enterprises should pin critical dependencies and monitor for typo squats. Add provenance checks and lock files to builds. Audit automation that silently publishes. Expect friction during migration. The long-term benefit is fewer ecosystem-wide incidents and faster containment. Communicate the timeline to developers and SRE teams now so builds do not fail unexpectedly. Cloudflare mitigated a record DDoS attack. Peak traffic hit 22.2 terabits per second. Packet rate reached 10.6 billion packets per second. Record events are becoming more frequent. Adversaries are scaling botnets and abusing higher bandwidth paths. Many networks cannot absorb that volume without layered defenses. Validate your upstream mitigation contracts today. Enable automated application challenges at Layer 7. Baseline normal traffic for your apps so sudden surges stand out. Practice failover and rate limiting during product launches or major events. Remember, packet rate and duration decide app health, not just headline bandwidth. If you host critical APIs, add circuit breakers and graceful degradation plans. Confirm that logs and metrics remain available under attack. CISA reported a breach at a U.S. federal civilian agency. entry came through an unpatched GeoServer instance. The bug allowed remote code execution. It was publicly patched in June 2024. Proof of concept exploits appeared soon after. The lesson is simple. Internet-facing services must patch fast, especially less famous components. If you run GeoServer, confirm versions today. Review web logs for serialized payloads and odd user agents. Hunt for post-exploitation tools and new accounts. Use the known exploited vulnerabilities list to prioritize patching. Add compensating controls for lagging assets. Segment geospatial servers from core identity and data stores. Finally, document owners for niche platforms. Ownership clarity often halves remediation time during incidents. Welcome back to the Daily Brief. Each day, we sift through the noise to bring you the stories that matter most for cyber defenders, business leaders, and anyone trying to stay one step ahead of the next headline. Today's mix includes a casino operator dealing with stolen employee records, a cloud identity flaw that proved more dangerous than first thought, and changes to the NPM ecosystem that will affect countless developers. We will also look at a record-breaking denial of service attack and a federal breach that shows how quickly a patched bug can still cause trouble. Settle in, listen on the go at dcn.baremetalcyber.com, and let's unpack the details. We begin in the casino industry, where Boyd Gaming disclosed a data breach. Attackers gained access to company systems and stole sensitive information tied to employees and some outside individuals. Boyd operates nearly 30 properties across 10 states, so even a limited incident affects a large population. The emphasis in the disclosure was on theft, not encryption, meaning ransomware was not the main play. Instead, the stolen data can resurface in fraud, identity theft, or highly targeted phishing. Employees and guests alike should expect suspicious emails that reference payroll or loyalty accounts. The larger lesson for the industry is about segmentation. Hotel, gaming, and corporate systems must be kept apart so one compromise does not cascade through the business. For organizations that hold customer trust so tightly, rehearsing how to communicate and respond during a breach is just as important as patching the holes that caused it. Microsoft is also in the spotlight after fixing a flaw in its Entra ID service. At first, the bug looked like a minor privilege escalation, but researchers soon showed it could allow attackers to impersonate any user, even global administrators. That makes it one of the more dangerous kinds of identity bugs, tracked as CVE 2025-55241. The issue stemmed from a combination of legacy token validation problems and overlooked pathways in older Azure AD Graph APIs. For cloud tenants, that meant a golden ticket into sensitive resources. Microsoft has issued a fix, but the responsibility does not end there. Organizations should rotate secrets, review unusual sign-in attempts, and check for app consents that don't make sense. This episode is a reminder that in cloud identity, even a small-seeming crack can open a door wide enough to walk through. GitHub is responding to repeated supply chain attacks by tightening NPM security. In recent months, campaigns like Shai-Hulud and Ghost Action spread through the ecosystem by abusing weak authentication and stolen tokens. To curb this, GitHub will now require two-factor authentication for publishing, shorten token lifetimes to just a week, and push developers toward trusted publishing from CI systems. That means developers must adjust workflows and automation that once relied on long-lived secrets. There will be some pain in the transition, but the benefits are clear. Fewer compromised packages rippling across the ecosystem. Enterprises should also do their part. Pin versions, scan for typo squats, and monitor build pipelines closely. Supply chain abuse thrives on inertia, and these steps are meant to break that cycle. From the developer ecosystem, we turn to the sheer scale of denial of service attacks. Cloudflare reported blocking an assault that peaked at more than 22 terabits per second, with packet rates exceeding 10 billion per second. Only weeks ago, the largest ever attack was half that size. This arms race shows adversaries are scaling botnets with better infrastructure and smarter amplification. For most organizations, surviving an attack of that magnitude alone is impossible. That is why layered defenses and contracts with upstream providers matter. The numbers are attention-grabbing, but the real danger comes from packet floods that overwhelm applications even when bandwidth holds. Companies should baseline normal traffic, rehearse failovers, and build graceful degradation into critical services. In a world where the record can double in a matter of weeks, preparation is the only constant. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency disclosed that attackers breached a federal agency through an unpatched GeoServer flaw. The vulnerability had been patched in June 2024 and quickly made its way into the known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, but the agency's systems were not updated in time. Proof of concept code was circulating within weeks, and adversaries took advantage. The incident shows how quickly the gap between patch release and patch application can be exploited, especially in niche tools that may not have clear owners inside an organization. For defenders, the take-home is simple. Maintain clear asset inventories, assign ownership for specialized systems, and treat the KEV list as mandatory, not advisory. In this case, the exploitation of a single overlooked system was enough to breach a federal network, a sobering reminder that no patch can wait. The U.S. Secret Service says it dismantled a covert SIM server network near the United Nations in New York. Investigators seized more than 300 servers and 100,000 SIM cards, all concentrated within a 35-mile radius of the city. Officials described the operation as a serious national security risk, with the infrastructure capable of blasting millions of texts per minute. Such power could enable mass spam, coordinated disinformation, or even disruption of cellular towers. While the investigation continues, the case underscores how industrialized SIM farms can blur the line between criminal monetization and geopolitical capability. For defenders, that means staying alert for spikes in phishing attempts using disposable numbers and urging teams to move away from SMS-based authentication wherever possible. Email security vendor Libraesva has released an emergency fix after discovering exploitation of a flaw in its email security gateway. The bug, cataloged as CVE 2025-5969, had already been used by suspected state actors when the patch went live. Libraesva's gateways sit in front of email systems to filter phishing, malware, and spoofing attempts for thousands of customers. Exploitation here could allow attackers to slip payloads past defenses or alter rules for deeper compromise. Medium severity on paper does not mean low impact in practice. Organizations using this product should update immediately, then review logs for suspicious activity. It is another reminder that email gateways are attractive targets because of the trust placed in them. SolarWinds has again patched its Web Helpdesk product, this time addressing a critical flaw cataloged as CVE 2025-26399. This is now the third attempt to close the deserialization vulnerability chain that attackers can use to achieve unauthenticated remote code execution. A score of 9.8 on the severity scale reflects the ease of exploitation and the potential for deep access. Web Helpdesk is used widely for ticketing, workflow automation, and asset management. A compromise here could ripple into other IT systems. Administrators are urged to apply the hotfix without delay, isolate exposed instances, and look for unusual AJAX proxy requests in logs. Persistence in patch bypasses shows how difficult it can be to fully close complex flaws once attackers get a foothold. SonicWall has pushed a new firmware update for its SMA 100 appliances, aimed specifically at wiping rootkit malware that has persisted across earlier cleanups. Researchers had flagged that attackers were finding ways to survive remediation by embedding malicious code deeply into devices. The new build, version 10.2.2.2-92 SV, adds enhanced file checking that should root out known implants. SonicWall recommends all customers upgrade immediately, rotate credentials, and verify backup integrity. Edge appliances are frequent targets because they provide both access and trust. If left unchecked, rootkits can serve as hidden doorways into larger networks. After upgrading, customers should monitor closely for any continued suspicious callbacks, a sign that neighboring systems may also be affected. Iranian hackers operating under the name Nimbus Manticore are expanding their campaigns in Europe. Known also as UNC 1549 or Smoke Sandstorm, the group has been sending fake job offers to lure employees in defense, telecom, and aerospace industries. These phishing campaigns are designed to steal credentials and implant espionage tooling, not to deliver quick profit. The tactics include professional-looking messages on LinkedIn, weaponized documents, and command and control hosted on compromised sites. The campaign lines up with intelligence priorities of Iran's Revolutionary Guard. For defenders, the lesson is vigilance around employment-themed messages, double-checking recruiter identities, and enforcing phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication. Sensitive industries remain high-value targets, and recruitment channels are becoming a favored entry point. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency has added a Google Chromium vulnerability tracked as CVE 2025-10585 to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog. That means exploitation is happening in the wild, and federal agencies are now mandated to patch on deadline. The flaw was addressed by Google in September, but with proof-of-concept code circulating, attackers moved quickly. For enterprise defenders, this is the time to verify browser update compliance, especially on systems where auto-update is disabled. Remember that unmanaged Chromium-based browsers may lag behind Chrome itself. Treat browser patching as a core security function. Drive-by attacks can chain flaws like this with credential theft or sandbox escapes. Researchers also uncovered a malicious NPM package called Fezbox that used QR codes as a delivery mechanism for malware. The trick was clever. Hide the payload retrieval instructions inside an image format that looks harmless. Once installed, the package fetched a cookie-stealing component from an attacker server. This shows how supply chain attackers continue to evolve, looking for ways to evade simple scans of code repositories. Developers should yank the package, rotate any tokens exposed on build machines, and audit dependency trees for knock-on effects. The best defense remains limiting what packages are allowed in production and using trusted publishing channels with two-factor authentication. Darktrace reported a new botnet called Shadow V2 that customers can actually rent to launch denial-of-service attacks. The group behind it compromised misconfigured Docker containers running in Amazon Web Services. By exploiting exposed APIs, they deployed Go-based malware to turn cloud servers into attack nodes. A Python command and control layer coordinates the floods. This is another example of how cloud misconfigurations quickly become attack vectors. Organizations should lock down Docker sockets, limit IAM permissions, and enable runtime protection to block unexpected containers. Even a handful of hijacked cloud nodes can deliver massive attack volume when aggregated. Jaguar Land Rover has extended its production halt into October following the cyber attack that struck in August. The company, which employs more than 30,000 people, said it needs more time to restore systems safely and in phases. The ripple effect is felt by suppliers and customers alike, with delivery timelines now slipping further. This case illustrates how deeply manufacturing depends on IT systems, from ERP to plant floor controllers. For defenders in industrial sectors, recovery is often harder than containment. Clean room rebuilds, forensic analysis, and vendor coordination all extend downtime. The lesson is to model how digital disruption translates into physical production stops and prepare business continuity plans accordingly. Finally, the Inc. ransomware group claims responsibility for stealing 5.7 terabytes of data from the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office. They have already posted samples on their leak site, a tactic meant to pressure officials into negotiation. Legal agencies hold highly sensitive case files, which raises the stakes for victims and for anyone named in those files. The incident also highlights a trend where data theft, not encryption, is the central tactic. For defenders, it's critical to monitor for impersonation attempts, track potential leaks, and prepare for secondary fraud against individuals named in stolen documents. Public trust in government systems is shaken each time such a breach occurs. Researchers disclosed 2 new vulnerabilities in Supermicro baseboard management controller firmware. Cataloged under CVE 2025-7937 and a related identifier, the flaws allow attackers to bypass root of trust verification. In practice, a crafted firmware image can be flashed and accepted as valid, giving long-term persistence below the operating system. While the severity scores are moderate, the impact is high because BMCs provide remote control over servers. Exploitation here could survive reboots and evade many monitoring tools. Administrators should restrict management interfaces to secure networks, apply updates quickly, and validate firmware signatures. As out-of-band management grows more critical, attackers will keep probing these layers for gaps. A campaign dubbed Operation Rewrite is spreading malware through search engine optimization poisoning. The payload is called BadIS, and it targets Microsoft Internet Information Services web servers. Visitors drawn in by manipulated search results are redirected, with attackers planting web shells for persistence. Researchers have linked the infrastructure to clusters operating in East and Southeast Asia, especially Vietnam. SEO poisoning is effective because it exploits user trust in search results and compromises legitimate websites. Web administrators should harden content management systems, monitor rewrite rules, and scan for unknown IIS modules. Defenders can also look for unusual referral traffic patterns that suggest SEO manipulation. Privacy researchers revealed that the Department of Homeland Security has been collecting DNA from U.S. citizens, including minors, and storing it in the FBI's CODIS database. The program expanded quietly between 2020 and 2024, originally framed as targeting non-citizens, but later encompassing Americans without congressional approval. Nearly 2,000 citizens' profiles were gathered during that period. The disclosure raises civil liberties concerns and could fuel legal challenges and policy reviews. For those in data governance, it illustrates how biometric collection and storage can expand without clear oversight. Travelers and advocacy groups may begin pushing for transparency around how genetic data is collected, stored, and shared with partner agencies. European law enforcement arrested 5 people tied to a cryptocurrency investment fraud worth more than 100 million euros. The scam operated across 23 countries, luring victims in France, Germany, Italy, and Spain with promises of returns through online platforms. Eurojust coordinated the action, which included freezing bank accounts and seizing assets across multiple jurisdictions. These kinds of investment frauds blend social engineering with the opacity of cryptocurrency transfers, making recovery difficult. Financial institutions should monitor for mule accounts and repeat transfer patterns. Public awareness campaigns also help shorten the window between victim contact and money transfer.
Read aloud this text in U.S. accent. Airports across Europe, including Brussels, Berlin, and London Heathrow, experienced disruption after a cyber attack hit electronic systems. On September 19th, check-in and boarding were forced into manual mode, causing delays the following day. While most travelers experienced only minor impact, the incident demonstrates the fragility of interconnected aviation systems. For airport operators, it is a reminder to rehearse degraded mode operations and validate segmentation between operational technology and customer-facing platforms. For passengers, it shows how cyber events translate into tangible travel disruption. Regulators are expected to review resilience and recovery planning with affected airports in the aftermath. Read aloud this text in EN-US accent. That wraps up today's Daily Brief. We covered breaches, cloud identity flaws, supply chain shifts, massive denial-of-service attacks, and even airport disruptions. Each story reinforces the same lesson. Cyber incidents no longer stay confined to IT, they ripple into operations, finance, and public trust. Stay informed, update where you can, and use these headlines to guide conversations with your teams. For more daily coverage, you can listen on the go at dcn.baremetalcyber.com. Thanks for joining, and stay ready for tomorrow's briefing.